I apologize in advance. There's a fan running in my background. It has to be because it got kind of smoky in my house. So if you hear the fan, it might be a little bit of a distraction. Today I'm going to discuss black-owned businesses, and before I get into what my quick whatever I want to say about this video, I want to start by saying we have a history of having certain neighborhoods burnt down to stop our economic growth. So I'm not here to debunk the fact that representation isn't important. I understand that it is. Based on how we all grew up, we know that having representation, having our own businesses is essential to keeping ourselves relevant in this country, since we have 400 years of being part of this nation. However, being that I live in a different time, I don't necessarily think we should be obligated to shop black owned. I think it should remain a choice. Don't get me wrong, I made this with heavy heart, and I'm not a one to say that there is no such thing as black excellence. I just don't think people should be obligated to shop black owned, although in some instances I do. And there are 4 points I want to touch on right quick when it comes to black owned businesses that I think need to be discussed concerning black owned businesses. And the first point I want to talk about concerns people being what's on black people time. And if you're watching this video and you're black, you know what I'm talking about. Where traditionally black people who owned brick and mortar stores would say things, or have not so much say, but have signs out on their doors showing their hours of operation, but never really abide by those signs. You can say that black people time also spills into when you're somebody's employee, okay? But that's the thing, like this thing where you can show up anytime you want to. When you're owning a business, that's just not how any of this works. You need to show up when you put hours on the door because it makes you look stable. Once you've established yourself, then maybe you can set weird hours that people are willing to abide by. But when you're new in this game, black people time just isn't going to work. I think that that's one of the primary reasons that black owned businesses are not supported, due to this internal thing called black people time. And even some black people like myself don't like it. I'll give you an example out here where I live. Years ago, when I was in my late 20s, there was this black owned restaurant, and it served patrons of different races, and man, their food was some of the best. But you never could count on them to, number one, answer the phone, and number two, to give you their exact hours, because what's on the door didn't represent anything. You could walk up to that restaurant on any given day, and the time it's supposed to be opened, the sign on the door said one thing, but you saw no one around or any indication it was going to open. And let's be honest, as black people, we need to address that. If you're going to own businesses, you need to be open. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just calling it for what it is. Okay. My second point is something that I disagree with a lot of people about, because I've seen comments by people who are non-black saying that black-owned businesses are not successful because they're niche. I agree with that statement, far as we stick too much to the niche business, meaning we have a whole lot of barbershops, a whole lot of beauticians, things like that. Where I actually disagree with the niche statement is because we have a different texture of hair. For example, we have to have niche businesses to deal with that, because typical society has given us, say, like, for example, light perms that's really caused a lot of permanent damage. To this day, I stopped perming my hair for good. I would say my late 20s, early 30s. And now I'm 43 years old, going on 44, or I will be 44 by the time this video's out. And my hairline is still recovering from that. So I hate to tell people, based on culture, some things have to be niche. That's just is what it is, based on our melanin, based on our hair texture. Some things are just going to remain niche, but I think there can be too much of the same niche in an area to where we need to diversify a little bit more. This third one is kind of a controversial one with me, because I'm hearing this and I see both sides of it. There have been people lately who are complaining that black-owned businesses are charging more than their non-black-owned counterparts. And the black business owner's argument is, well, if you went to their establishment, you would pay these prices. So why is it if I don't have your same skin color, you don't want to pay those prices? And that's a legitimate argument, given that black people will go out of their way to shop non-black brands like Gucci or Cristal, who said they want no association with your culture. And yet you'll go spend that money anyway. But here's where consumers have a point. The thing about it is, are you also raising those prices high because you think people in your own community should have to overpay you? You got to consider where you are when raising the prices of things. You got to consider the entire market, not just a skin color, or not just blanketly say, oh, we can raise these prices as high because they would go buy them from another race of people for hire. That can't be your motivation. And look, if you own a business and people are complaining about your prices, I get it, because here's why. Black people have a tendency to love discounts on things. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm talking about the average one. Not all, but most want a discount. You can't go into businesses owned by black-owned businesses and assume because they got your skin color that you are entitled to a discount. And don't play this game either, trying to say, how dare I say that, because I bet you at least one black-owned businesses will get on here and say, I've had my own people try that on me. If that price is still high, and it is a reasonable price according to the market, you should want to pay it regardless of that person's skin color, and not spite that person based on their skin color so that you can get a bargain, because that's nonsense. They still have overhead to pay. They still have bills to pay. Okay. Let me address the last issue as to why I think black businesses suffer, and that is the customer service aspect. We make up a large number of the customer service jobs in certain industries, but got the worst attitude in those industries. And that spills over into our black businesses. Look, again, I said this was not going to be a easy video, that this wasn't going to be something I'm going to sugarcoat things. And I'm not saying I didn't get attitude with people when I worked service jobs, because I worked at KFC in my teens and I kept an attitude. And looking back, it was a terrible thing to do, because I just didn't like that job. Now I appreciate those sort of blue collar roots. We all have. No one is going to go in an establishment and deal with someone who has a bad attitude and spend their money, when they can go elsewhere and deal with less attitude. That's just a fact, and that's not something we want to discuss, but I know that that plays a role in it. Okay? So just keep those 4 things in mind. That's my suspicion as to why black-owned businesses don't do well. If you know some of them pertain to you, deal with them. But I deal with the niche. If you own a barber shop, a beauty shop, or you're dealing with something based on melanin that has to be specific, like genetics or something, just different things, know that you have to be niche. No one bats an eye when there's a Chinatown. No one bats an eye when there's a Little Italy. So there should be no batting of the eye when we all so niche. All right, tell me what you think. Should you be obligated to shop black owned? I say no, despite the fact that I do in some instances, or I go out of my way to purposely do it in some instances. All right, leave your comments below. Thanks and take care.